This is a time card. It belongs to a man named James. He worked 16-hour shifts 6 days a week, 96 hours every single week. And then one night, driving home after his third double shift in a row, he fell asleep at the wheel. His car wrapped around a tree. He was 32 years old. At his funeral, his boss sent flowers. But here's the thing you need to understand. James wasn't special. He wasn't unlucky. He was normal. Because in 1937, there was no such thing as overtime pay. You worked until the work was done. And if you collapsed, they replaced you. But then something changed. The government did something radical. They turned overtime into a weapon. Not for the worker, against the boss. You think overtime pay is a reward. A little extra cash for working late? That's not what it was designed to be. Overtime was designed to be expensive, painful, prohibitive. The idea was simple. If you force a company to pay time and a half for every hour over 40, they'll stop making people work over 40. It wasn't a bonus, it was a punishment, and it worked. In 1938, Franklin Roosevelt signed the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA. It changed everything. For the first time in American history, the federal government said, if you make someone work more than 40 hours in a week, you have to pay them 1.5 times their normal wage. Not because workers deserved more money, but because bosses needed to feel the cost of exhaustion. The law was brilliant in its simplicity. Make overwork expensive, and companies will hire more people instead. Spread the work, spread the jobs, end the 16-hour nightmare. And for a while, it worked. The 40-hour work week became the standard. Factories hired second shifts. Bosses started caring about efficiency because every hour over 40 was bleeding them dry. But here's the part they don't teach you. The system had a loophole, a big one, and the people who built it knew exactly what they were doing. The villain of this story isn't a person. It's a word, exempt. When the FLSA passed, it didn't cover everyone. Certain jobs were carved out, excluded, made exempt from overtime rules. At first, the exceptions made sense. Executives, high-level professionals, people making serious money. But over the decades, that word exempt became a weapon. Because here's how the trick works. You don't need to abolish overtime. You just need to make sure people don't qualify for it. So companies started handing out fancy titles: manager, supervisor, associate director. It didn't matter if you were still doing the same work, stocking shelves, answering phones, closing the store alone at midnight. If your business card said manager, you were exempt. And exempt meant no overtime. You could work 50 hours, 60 hours, 80 hours, and you get paid the same as if you worked 40. But it gets worse, because in the 1940s, just as workers were starting to use overtime laws to fight back, employers launched a counterattack. They flooded the courts with lawsuits. Workers were suing for back pay, arguing that their commute should count, that putting on uniforms should count, that safety meetings should count. And the courts were starting to agree. So in 1947, Congress stepped in. They passed the Portal to Portal Act. It sounds boring, technical, but what it really did was gut the system. The Portal to Portal Act said that time spent traveling to and from work didn't count. Time spent getting ready didn't count. Pre-shift activities, post-shift cleanup didn't count unless it was explicitly part of your job duties. It was free labor. The message was clear: we'll give you overtime pay, but we'll define work so narrowly that you'll never collect it. By the 1980s, the game had evolved. Overtime wasn't just being avoided through exemptions and legal tricks. It was being rebranded. Suddenly, working long hours wasn't exploitation, it was ambition. If you wanted to get ahead, you stayed late, you came in early, you answered emails at midnight. And if you complained, you weren't a team player. The culture shifted, slowly, quietly. Overtime stopped being something companies feared. It became something workers were expected to volunteer. Salaried became the new code word. If you were on salary, you didn't punch a clock. You were a professional, and professionals didn't complain about hours. So the 60-hour workweek came back, not through force, through guilt, Meanwhile, the exemption rules kept expanding. In 2004, the Department of Labor rewrote the regulations. They raised the salary threshold slightly, but they also broadened the categories. More people became exempt. More people lost overtime. And the kicker, most of them didn't even know. Because nobody explains the rules. You get hired. They tell you you're salaried. You assume that's just how it works. But the truth is, millions of salaried workers are misclassified. They should be getting overtime. They're just not. And the companies know it. Because the penalty for getting caught is a slap on the wrist compared to the money they save. Here's the moment that broke the system. In 2016, the Obama administration tried to fix it. They proposed raising the salary threshold for overtime exemption. If you made less than $47,000 a year, you'd automatically qualify for overtime, no matter your title. It would have covered 4 million workers overnight. Retailers panicked. Restaurant chains panicked. Universities panicked. They said it would destroy the economy, so they sued. A federal judge in Texas blocked the rule. And when Trump took office, the administration let it die. Instead, they passed a compromise, a lower threshold, $35,000. Better than nothing, but still a betrayal. Because here's what most people don't realize. In 1975, more than 60% of salaried workers qualified for overtime. Today, less than 15%. It's not that the rules changed, it's that the rules stopped keeping up. Inflation ate the thresholds. Employers expanded exemptions, and overtime became a luxury for the few. But the real genius of the modern system isn't what they took away. It's what they made you accept. Because even if you do qualify for overtime, you probably don't get it. Not officially, you just work it anyway. Think about it. How many times have you answered an email after hours? How many times have you taken a work call on your day off? How many times have you finished something at home because you didn't have time at the office? That's unpaid overtime, and it's everywhere. In 2023, American workers gave their employers an estimated $373 billion in free labor. Not because they were forced to, but because the culture normalized it. You're not on the clock if you're at home, even if you're working, even if your boss expects it. The weapon that was supposed to protect you overtime pay has been turned into a joke. And the saddest part, we police each other. If someone leaves exactly at 5, they're lazy. If someone doesn't answer a weekend Slack message, they're not committed. We've internalized the exploitation. We've become the enforcers. And the companies don't even have to ask anymore. We just give them our time for free. Overtime was never supposed to be normal. It was supposed to be so expensive that it didn't happen. The 40-hour work week wasn't a gift. It was a compromise. A line in the sand that said, beyond this point, you pay. But we've erased that line. We've convinced ourselves that working 60 hours is just what it takes. That being always on is part of the job. That if you want to succeed, you sacrifice your time. But here's the truth. Every hour you work for free is an hour stolen. Not from your schedule, from your life. The system didn't break. It was broken on purpose. And until we remember that overtime was a weapon, a tool to protect us, not reward us, we'll keep working ourselves to death. Just like James. Subscribe to see what they take next.